Meghan Markle has released her first podcast episode from her series Confessions of a Female Founder, and it's creating these headlines. Meghan Markle reveals her scary experience with postpartum preeclampsia. However, did she just copy this story from Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh? Hey up everyone, it's me, Stef, the alternate, your nerdy alternative, and welcome to the Dose of the Daily Nerd, where I break down the royal news and gossip of the day that's pretty much caught me eye. And oh my goodness, yeah, let's jump into this madness, shall we? Because Megsy's released her first podcast episode, and it is creating these headlines, where Megsy's revealing that she had a scary experience with postpartum preeclampsia. However, I've done some research, and did she just copy this story from Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh? Now, firstly, all props goes to the office of CB at CB_CB for sharing this article in the first place. And yeah, by sharing it, I was influenced to go down this particular rabbit hole. And my goodness, what I have found from this rabbit hole is going to shock you guys. Now, let's get on to first and foremost what Megsy said. And so she said with her guest, Bumble founder Whitney Wolfe Herd, we both had very similar experiences, though we didn't know each other at the time, with postpartum. And we both had preeclampsia, postpartum preeclampsia. Now, what is postpartum preeclampsia? Now, this is from the Mayo Clinic, and they're saying it's a rare condition that occurs when you have high blood pressure and excess protein in your urine soon after childbirth. Preeclampsia is a similar condition that develops during pregnancy and typically resolves with the birth of the baby. So now that we know what postpartum preeclampsia is, Megsy had to say further, it's so rare and so scary. And you're still trying to juggle all of these things. And the world doesn't know what's happening quietly. And in the quiet, you're still trying to show up for people, mostly for your children. But those things are huge medical scares. And her guest, Wolfe Herd, Bumble founder, agreed, saying, I mean, life or death, truly. Now, Megsy didn't clarify whether this condition that she claims to have had occurred either after the birth of Prince Archie or Princess Lilibet. Now, let me be very clear here. I believe, in my opinion, conspiracy theory, whatever, that Megsy was never pregnant with those two children. You look at the pictures and the bump's supposed to be up here where your belly is. Not down to where your freaking knees are, all right? The pictures that are out there just shows that there is definitely something wrong with those pregnancies. And I do believe, again, in my opinion, conspiracy theory, whatever, that she faked those pregnancies. Do your own research, though. Come to your own conclusions on that. So for her to turn around and say that she had postpartum preeclampsia, well, that didn't ring true to me. Because I'm under the belief that she was never pregnant in the first place. So if someone's never pregnant in the first place, just in this kind of alternate universe, let's say, yeah? How can they then claim to have suffered from postpartum preeclampsia now that we know what it is? Now, this is the thing. Started thinking and I thought, hang on a minute. I remember Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, suffering a horrific birth when it came to Lady Louise. And so I looked into that. And I found this article here from the Daily Mail. The real terrifying story of how Sophie Wessex, as she was named at the time, okay, she was then the Duchess of Wessex, and her baby, Lady Sophie, cheated death and why it still haunts her. And sorry, not the baby's Lady Louise, not Lady Sophie. Sorry, got my names mixed up there. And so, in this article, Duchess Sophie, she was in labour at the time, and by 8 in the evening, she was in absolute agony. And the article turns around and says that the staff called the Queen's obstetrician, Marcus Setchell, who instructed them to get Sophie to the nearest hospital immediately. They dialed 999, got the ambulance. The article says the lives of Sophie and her baby, Lady Louise, were hanging perilously in the balance. Prince Edward had been contacted in Mauritius, where he was at the time, but there was no way that he could return until the very next day. A medical team was placed on standby 4 miles away at Firmley Park Hospital. And when Duchess Sophie arrived, they realised she needed an emergency caesarean, that she was showing signs of acute placental abruption, in which the placental lining separates from the uterus. And I'm there thinking, well, hang on a minute. Are acute placental abruptions firstly rare? Yes, they are. Here, the National Institute of Health says that placental abruption is a relatively rare condition, requires emergency management. The majority of placental abruptions occur before 37 weeks gestation, and Google here says that it occurs in about 1 out of 100 pregnancies, so about 1%. So they are relatively rare. I'm then thinking, hang on a minute, can acute placental abruptions be a complication of postpartum preeclampsia? Yes. Yes, they can. Preeclampsia, here the Mayo Clinic says, increases your risk of placental abruption. With this condition, the placenta separates from the inner wall of the uterus before delivery. Severe abruption can cause heavy bleeding, which can be life-threatening for both the mother and baby. Now, let me be very clear here. There is no official confirmation that Duchess Sophie was diagnosed with preeclampsia. But knowing how rare placental abruptions are, that Duchess Sophie did suffer from, that was confirmed during the birth of Lady Sophie, and knowing that preeclampsia can increase a woman's risk of suffering from a placental abruption, does give rise to the question, did Megsy copy a postpartum preeclampsia story from Duchess Sophie? Did Megsy copy her postpartum preeclampsia story from the horrific experience that Duchess Sophie had to go through when giving birth to Lady Louise? Again, let me repeat. I don't believe for 1 second Megsy was pregnant with Archie and Lilibet. I don't believe that for a second. I believe she used a surrogate. And that's my opinion, conspiracy theory, whatever. Do your own research, come to your own conclusions. And so for me, how can someone who I believed was never pregnant with either child in the first place claim to suffer from postpartum preeclampsia that can only happen if you're pregnant in the first place? Again, I want to thank at CB_CB for sharing this article, because it sparked something in my head and it went down this rabbit hole. And here we are at the end of the rabbit hole. Did Megsy copy a postpartum preeclampsia story from Duchess Sophie? Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh. What do you guys think? With that being said, if you appreciated this video and you want more, and believe me, of course, there's going to be more, you do not want to miss my next video, then make sure you subscribe to join our alternate tribe, like, share, comment down below your opinion, conspiracy theory, or whatever, based on the research that I've just provided to you guys. Did Megsy copy her postpartum preeclampsia story from Duchess Sophie? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. I appreciate all your faces. And until the next time, you guys, laters.